Welcome to season 2 of the Undisrupted podcast. I'm Carl, joined by, as always, my salty co-host, Dr. Adam Pyle. Dr. Adam, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm enjoying my hydroxychloroquine and trying to stay in the warm weather and all that fun stuff.
Yes, no cups of bleach today, folks. So this is season 2. We made it. We got picked up for a second season.
I know,
amazing.
Right?
Got picked up. I don't even know what that means. And I see you're rocking some swag there. What is that?
Yes. Official, like, undisrupted swag. It's one of one.
For our listeners who are not watching us on video, it is a, describe it. What is that you got there?
It's a water tumbler deal. And, I have a pretty crafty wife. So, we'll see if we can get some on the Undisrupted store.
Oh, yes.
At some point, yeah. Have a couple giveaways.
Stay tuned, season 3. Yes, she's crafty. So season 2, we've already kind of started thinking about some of the things, some of the feedback we got from some of our listeners. We're going to be focusing a lot of season 2 on equity, which, of course, if COVID aside, I mean, that I would say, Adam, don't you think that's like been the headline of this year, is really like the kind of not only the equity in terms of access in our schools, but also racial inequities and things coming to light. I mean, I don't know, where do you stand on all of this? I mean, you and I've had private conversations for years about it, and I'm always finding it enlightening to hear about some of the things that even I'm like, I had no idea what code switching was until you told me, right? And those kind of things. So what are your thoughts on all that and how that impacts schools?
I mean, to me, I'm just happy that all these issues are being brought to light, and not by the group that is under the boot of the various issues. Similar to when you started having your Me Too movement being brought to light. And so it got men thinking differently about how they were doing things in the workplace, how they were addressing and talking to people. And so when you start looking at some of the racial equity issues, social justice issues that are out there, I think it really brought the empowered group that could help enact the change aware of those issues that are out there. People talk about different definitions of the word woke. And to me, when I look at woke, somebody asked me one day, it was like, Adam, how do you define woke? And to me, woke isn't like, and I could be wrong, this is me. You don't have to be like on the street, like with signs and protests and everything. To me, woke is now you're awake, you become awoken to the issues that another group is facing. You realize that, hey, it's something that's different. I mean, when I was talking to my wife about some of the things women go through, she was like, hey, I have to think about things when I walk to the car. And I'm like, I never think about going to my car at midnight, something crazy happening to me. And so we talk about that. So when in our district, we want our teachers to be aware of what the other students are thinking, where there's poverty informed, being racially informed, gender equity, all these things we want our people thinking about. So like, what are you hearing like out there in the other country known as Texas?
Well, it's interesting because in February, I did this presentation with this guy, Adam, and he and I, we did a thing here in Texas, TCEA. We actually did a presentation called It's Not All Black and White. And this is before, of course, COVID hit and everything else. And it was, I don't know if you felt this way too, but I felt like we were right on the cusp of what was about to happen anyway, because there was a pretty good crowd showed up. This is a Monday, guys. This is like a whole week conference, and essentially nobody shows up on Monday. They always show up for the Wednesday, Thursday when the vendor hall opens and you can get the free pens.
Now, hold up. Now you gotta phrase that. This was the Monday after the Super Bowl too.
That's right. It was 10 a.m. Adam comes to my house the day before. He flies in. We're working like during the Super Bowl trying to get this presentation thrown together. And I think one of the things that I picked up out of that presentation, just kind of the feelings here in Texas especially, is it's amazing how much labels can make us already think about a student when you hear words like, and I think one of the activities we did is like we had them just put words up on a word cloud, like what are some things you hear, and like ELL, apartment dwellers, I mean just little phrase like that, free and reduced lunch, and like instantly when you hear those phrases, our minds naturally go to a place that maybe, and this has all to do with the biases that we already come into in our lives, and maybe you think, okay, well that's a poor kid, so he's going to be a problem, or or he's got, or if they have, what is it, a broken home is another one that someone brought up. Like, yeah, when you hear broken home, like, oh, here we go, going to be a behavior problem. There's some amazing kids that come from broken homes too, and some really terrible ones that come from non-broken homes. So
But even that phrase "broken home," I mean, you're already telling somebody that something's wrong with them. I mean, nobody wants anything that's broken. So you're telling that kid, "Hey, there's something wrong with your home.
Right.
It needs to be fixed."
Right. So you already come in with that big chip on your shoulder as a student, and what does that mean? Yeah. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. I mean, that was one of the big things I got out of that, and I feel like, kind of as we move forward with the show this season, I'd be curious to hear what people have to say. Like, I know we're interviewing people from all over the country too. So, and actually someone from not even from this country, in Brett later, but I want to hear like kind of what are their feedbacks and what's going on. And I know one of our guests is from Minneapolis, which is kind of like the hotbed of all of this too. And it's sad that it takes an event like that. And I think a lot of it was just timing. I mean, you talk about the rhetoric of what's happening in our country, and then the fact that we're all at home, all the sports were canceled. Even a lot of the athletes say, we don't really necessarily want to go back, because right now you guys are finally starting to pay attention instead of being distracted by things like sports, which I absolutely love sports. So I love the distraction, but I also want to make sure that we're being, having those conversations with our own kids about it.
And it is, when I look at it, especially when you start talking about technology and the resources that we have, that we are giving our students the skills, the resources and the knowledge to utilize those tools to tell their own story. And I think that is the greatest thing that technology allows our students to do, to research and tell their own story, because you can't tell the kids, oh, this whole COVID stuff, that's not going on. The social justice, social change issues that are going on, you can't talk about that in school. We have to be real, as the kids say, keep it 100. As they walk into these spaces, and they have these tools, are they using Flipgrid to kind of tell their story about, how they feel? Are we giving them like Book Creator where they can research and talk about those things? We have an election that's happening this year. And it's been a very polarizing topic for various people. So our students hear things from their parents. They watch the news, they listen to radio, listen to songs, they listen to music, they watch TV. So are we giving them the resources and the skills to research, make up their own mind, and then also express how they feel in a way that's better than what a lot of us adults are doing? Because we know there's a lot of bad rhetoric from adults on social media.
And I mean, this podcast is going to drop the day after the election. So, I mean, we're recording this now about a week and a half out. We're seeing record numbers here in Texas. I know you guys are in Georgia too, are seeing really long lines of people. And that's, I think in some ways it's finally, there's been some inaction in terms of, or action, I should say, of people wanting to get up and say, like, let's go out and actually do something. And maybe it took all of this to make that moment happen. And I always, of course, look for silver linings. So in my head, I'm like, finally, this is happening. But you're right. Those conversations with our kids, I mean, my kids are, unfortunately, they hear a lot of what we say kind of behind closed doors. And so they're repeating some of it. And I was like, you have to be careful, because that friend you play with, their parents may have different beliefs. And, before really this last couple presidencies where we've had what seems like it keeps getting more and more of a divide. I mean, we used to always have conversations in homes all the time about, we disagree on politics, but you know what, we're still going to be friends when it's all said and done. Now people are like, I'm unfriending you, I'm blocking you. And the kids see that and they're like, geez, I guess I need to be the same way. And I need to hate that person because they support Donald Trump, or they support, Joe Biden or whatever. It's a tricky thing. And you're right, as teachers, I'm seeing teachers now starting to step up and actually step out a little bit and vocalize what they feel. And it's a dangerous world for them, I know, in a lot of ways, because you could be teaching kids that have different beliefs. So what do you think about that idea of, like, as a teacher, you're almost handcuffed in some ways. I mean, there's freedom of speech, but as my wife always says, there ain't freedom of consequences. So you can say whatever you want. You ain't going to get arrested, but there is a consequence that comes with that.
And it's funny you brought up the whole unfriending on social media. It's like my 9-year-old. She was upset when one of her friends said, "I'm not gonna be your friend anymore if you don't give me your cookies at lunch." So it's we digress to kids where it's I'm not gonna be your friend anymore because you put a meme I didn't like.
Yes. You talked to so-and-so about something and I saw that, and now it's like, yeah. And of course our lives are all open and online on Facebook anyway. So sometimes I just feel like, especially right now, I told myself I was going to do this a month out. I'm just going to turn off Facebook and I'll check back in on November 4th. But I, of course, haven't. I put a lot of things on Facebook, not political stuff. I try to keep it light. My latest one I think is fun. I want to see what your answer is to this. And that is, take your last name, the year, which is 2020, and then your campaign slogan was whatever the last thing was you just said. Which, of course, I can't remember what you just said now. But oh, I know it is. So it's be file 2020. I want my cookies back or something. Yes. See, that could be a campaign slogan.
There we go. Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, but when you start talking about social media, and I listen to other podcasts, and Bomani Jones, I listened to one of his podcasts, and he said people get on social media to do one or two things: to inform or to perform. And so, you have to be very careful when you get out there on social media. And as adults, we've had several teachers I know in my district that have had to have some serious conversations with the superintendent, and a couple of them, they decided to go some other place based on the results of those conversations, because they were posting things on social media that you probably didn't want.
Right.
That person to supervise your child to say. So, we have to be mindful, I think, as adults, of what we say on social media. And as friends and peers of other people, sometimes you need to maybe check your friend, like, hey, you know what? Last I checked, you got a mortgage to pay, so you may not want to post that.
Careful about those. Careful about those consequences. I think digital literacy is another thing. I mean, I know it kind of skipped a generation. Like the kids that are in school right now, and when they're going through it, they're like, they know all about like vetting your sources and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the generation that's now on Facebook, I mean, in our age bracket, we missed that talk, because there wasn't social media when we were in high school or college. I mean, it just came about lately. So I don't know if you guys see this too, but there's articles posted all the time on both sides of the fence. And I'm like, I've gotten to where it's like, you know what, I'll read it and look at it with a discerning eye, but always know that there's angles and stuff to that. And I try to call that out a little bit. I feel like it's my job to do that. I hate to be that guy, but I'm always like, check your sources. Where's this coming from? Blah, 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 blah. And people are like, oh, Carl, quit it. And they probably block me after that.
but even with that, Carl, with the sources, we have to start also having the conversations with our students to watch the entire video clip. Because, you're getting these clips, these franking clips where someone's clipping what someone says at the very beginning or in the middle of a clip. And yes, that little clip by itself sounds horrible. What did they say before it? What did they say after it? It's kind of like reading you can't take a sentence out of a book and say that's what that whole book's about without reading the whole thing. So, you want to make sure that, and that's something that I know with my library media specialist, we've been really big on with that whole digital literacy. Yes, you see a meme, or yes, you hear an audio clip. Yes, that person did say that, but what did they say before that or after that? There's some context that has to be laid there before you get upset about it. So, it's something really important.
I interviewed a guy recently. His name is Josh Stock, and he has a book called Awesomesauce, which is all about videos. And so a little plug to him, but how teachers create videos. But one of the things in his book that he wrote about was he did this thing where he put out, it was like he talked about the anticipation, the unboxing videos where you go and you're waiting to see what they're going to do. And he's like, use that tool to help him with teaching. And so what he did was he posted a video on Google Classroom, and he just said, hey, listen, just want to say I'm a little bit worried here, but I'm going to go tell you guys this. I don't feel like girls should be firefighters. And I feel like and then he went on to list like several other jobs that he doesn't think girls should do. And then he paused a minute, and then he went through and actually said, now, I don't really believe this. But what had happened is that people just watched the first part of the video, and he said his Google Classroom page blew up. Like, I can't believe you. He's like, did you watch the rest of the video? And it was all about, and he was actually, it was leading to a lesson on equity, gender equity, which actually was a great kind of hook, to bring them in. But yeah, you're right. We don't watch the whole video. If it's not that little now this with the little subtitles, scrolling on our Facebook feed, or TikTok, which is now, everything's a minute or less, and it has to be a funny dance. I mean,
you got to find that right time limit, because, those are good. But if you get to like the Quibi level, I guess that's like too long, because Quibi died from the time our podcast began to now. Quibi's no longer there. So guess what? Undisrupted lasted longer than Quibi.
That's right. We'll see if we can get the editors to drop like a tombstone. Quibi right there. We'll do some video editing. We'll send it up to the control room.
So let me ask you this, like switching gears. As we talk about this school year in equity, let's talk about some fearless predictions.
Okay.
We talk about things changing right now and some things that aren't going to go back to how they quote unquote used to be. So what do you think this year that you've seen so far is something that's kind of here to stay? This is going to become refined and better in our schools.
This one stings me because I'm admitting to a prediction I made a couple of years ago that isn't going to come true, and that is that I thought that the LMS was going to absolutely die. Like we don't need an LMS. We don't need an LMS. It is so needed now. And the thing I'm noticing now is that the LMSs are just terrible. I mean, the interfaces are bad. They're clunky. Yeah. I'm not going to say any names on this podcast, but because you never know who might be watching or listening. But I will say that, that needs to get better. And I
Yeah.
think teachers have really leaned on it heavily. And I'm glad that they have that tool to go to, I guess, if I want to say the silver lining of it. But I do think that has to be. So my fearless prediction is LMSs are going to finally see a massive makeover, and they need to have it. And maybe if we're cutting the checks to them, they may just say, you know what, why, it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I feel like it has to happen. And maybe someone's going to invent one finally, that is like super great UI, UX. Kids can get into it, teachers and parents can figure out how to navigate it. I watched my daughter today, and she took third grade. She took, it was 8 clicks just to get a Google slideshow submit to the teacher. And it was like click, 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 pop up, pop up, pop. And I'm like, at some point she's going to lose it. And it didn't get submitted. And that happens quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
What about you?
When I look at where we are and the things that have changed, I definitely think something's going to change is the whole connectivity. Before we're going one-to-one with devices, just giving kids some kind of laptop. I think with what we've been providing, there is going to be a definitely a change in school systems providing in-home internet access to families through some kind of service. There's a lot of folks that have started doing that already. We're already doing hotspots. So, what's the next, hurdle or thing we're going to do? So I definitely see that in-home internet now being the new one-to-one that systems are providing in some shape, form, or fashion, because it's you got to have connectivity for everything now. Yeah. I'm really happy, like, Future Ready really taking a stand on, making sure we have folks connected and making people aware, because connectivity is, if you're not connected, you're not doing anything right now. Right. And so you can't use that great LMS if you don't have access. And now it's not even just getting connected to the internet; it's streaming content that you're going to have to be able to use that internet for.
Yeah, your little 10 meg max hotspot for a month is not going to work after about 2 days.
So, and I just see more and more in home. We talked about with E-rate. Is just getting the buildings connected. So I think the next flip is definitely getting that connectivity outside the building to the homes. That's where I really see my bold prediction. And like I said before, I said in the last season, I think we're getting rid of paper money, and we're getting there. And I went to get some lunch today, and I was like, sorry, digital money, no paper money.
Yeah, contactless also spread us right into the future, because we had to become contactless. We couldn't use any type of paper transaction. I'll go back to your point about the wireless there. I think, maybe E-rate extends to the home. I don't know how that works, but I was thinking just here, like we did a lunch pickup just recently. So like our school district, they're getting supported by the United Farmers Association to basically provide free food. For every kid you have in your house, you get 7 meals of breakfast and lunch provided for free for the rest of the school year. So some company is subsidizing that. So I'm thinking it's going to have to happen at some point soon, where a company is either aware of it or figures out a way that they can make it work on and get under their bottom line or whatever to support that kind of streaming. There's some companies I knew threw it out there right away. Comcast and Spectrum tried to do some like lower cost internet, which is okay. I do think at some point maybe it becomes a subsidy, and I know that people freak out like, oh, we're gonna have to pay taxes on that too. So maybe there's a partnership that needs to happen to make that. I don't know. I'm just.
You already are. Those are those other fees on your bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But because I think like T-Mobile, I've seen the commercials. T-Mobile, you're looking to sponsor. Hey, here you go. They have that connected 10 million or something, where they're giving away free internet over the next 5 years to have every kid connected or whatever the case may be. So, the pull is there to kind of start doing those things. So, it's only a matter of time. I just hope that we move faster than slower with all this stuff. So sometimes, go slow to go fast. This one, we need to go fast.
Yeah.
To go faster.
Go fast to go faster. I like that. Yeah. We need to be spending 5G on 5G. We gotta figure out a way to make that happen. I don't know. Other fearless things. I've long said this is just a funny one, but I don't know if this will ever happen in our lifetime. I think we should have self-driving buses. No, it's kind of scary. Now, I doesn't mean no adults on the bus. I said there's an adult on the bus, but the adult is not driving. The adult is actually helping kind of manage what is the mobile classroom in that sense, right? They're on the bus. It's wireless. It's connected. We can kind of see what's happening in there. There's already a lot of that happening with the wireless buses, but why not just, instead of driving forward, have your attention facing the kids? Maybe there's some opportunities there too.
Oh, here's my fearless one on that one too. What about open classrooms? You know, like you had this startup community deals where you could, rent out space in the building and have your little company there. What about schools going that route now with all this digital stuff and with connectivity not in the home yet? You kind of go into these little spaces where, hey, I need some more like tutorial kind of spaces, but it's like an open campus, open classroom. You're taking your regular school. Yeah, hey, I want to get some help in math. I'm gonna set up an appointment time, walk up in this cafe space, if you will, hop on, get my one-to-one tutorial with somebody, and after that, I keep moving. So more of an open campus kind of cafe startup feel for the K-12 space.
You could take that a step further, and I mean, and in theory, you could actually, the WeWorks and all that, where they have the rented spaces, you could probably, I guess, after kids are out, because you have to worry about with kids in the building, but I think after school, you can maybe even use some of those spaces that are already air conditioned anyway and say, hey, we'll rent it out for a cost, like almost do like a mini WeWork for schools and be like, oh, you can pay to have a little bit of our space as like your quote unquote office. We have really good internet. It's all well, managed and everything, security and everything like that. That'd be an interesting way as an income, revenue idea for a school to say like, man, we got this beautiful new, I've seen a couple amazing computer labs that just have like screens everywhere and you can have great meetings in there. But a lot of times they don't really think about how you can rent those out or lend those out. I guess some of it has to do with, again, child and protection laws and things like that.
I mean, but that's the thing. We have a chance to reimagine school, reimagine learning. And my hope is that we don't try to reimagine and come up with the same thing. How can I imagine this to look like it did before?
Yeah, it's still a wheel. It just looks a different color, right? It's not the same. Yeah, it's still used for the same thing. Yeah.
We're building a better mousetrap. Let's actually, like, instead of building a better mousetrap, let's get rid of the Mises because I hate them to pieces.
And on that note, folks, well, we are excited to have you guys along with us again for season 2. I know Adam and I were pumped to do the first season together, and we were excited when Future Ready to agree to let us back on the air. Even though,
I know, right?
I know, we were shocked. I was surprised too. But hopefully we've got a lot of good messages from our friends that have been listening. Thank you guys so much for that. And so just thank you all for joining us. We're going to try to make it a little more interactive. Again, we dabbled with it in the first season, but we're hoping that you guys out there listening, whether you're in the Future Ready Facebook group or on Twitter, use the hashtag undisrupted. Feel free to drop us a question, a comment, something like that. We'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll try to roll that into the actual show as well. We want to do this season. We want to try to do a listener email show later in the season. So we'll see how that goes.
We want to hear like those stories of what's a crazy story or something that happened on Zoom. So tell
true confessions of a Zoomer.
Yeah, tell us about a hot mic that's
Yes, we'll leave the names out, but yes, you can imagine there's all sorts of fun stories with that. Yeah,
or protect the innocent.
Well, I want to thank you all for joining us again, our listeners out there, and excited to have you on board for season 2. Please make sure that you subscribe and give us a review. Of course, if you drop a review in there, we'll read it on the show as well. And
5 stars.
Oh yeah, 5 stars is good. He's like, what's he doing? Oh, he's 5 stars. That's right. So thank you so much. This has been the Undisrupted Podcast, brought to you by Future Ready Schools. He's Adam, and you can find him on Twitter at AskAdam3.
And he is Carl, and you can find him on the Twitter at Mr. Hooker. And remember, we're better together.
And we are better undisrupted. This podcast is made possible by the generous support of Amazon Web Services.